time to get ready for a most feared opponent, and that would be the New York Jets. I can't even say that with a straight face. And our next guest, 97.3 ESPN Eagles insider, John McMullen. Now, my job is to be a communicator in life. I'm supposed to communicate effectively. I teach my kids at school, Hunter, every day. Endeavor to be better communicators. And I dropped the ball last week. I was supposed to communicate to John, hey, by the way, even though we got a little extra time, we're sort of in the dead zone here, you're going to come on with us, right? And I failed, and we missed you last week, John, but you are back, and that is cause for celebration. A big woohoo from the PT.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're celebrating. That, to me, says that you're kind of shifting blame to me, so that you're celebrating that the guy who's on every day picks up the phone. One day I don't pick up the phone.
Well, that just shows you how much we missed you. Now, listen, I do have a Johnny Mac joke that I made in my opening soliloquy or monologue or whatever the heck you call it, right? I said that because Gil and Mosher and Ryan were talking on the Sports Bash about games that the Eagles are expected to win versus games they lost, like games with big point spreads that they lost, and they referenced a game in Oakland back in the day in California where they were favored heavy and lost 13-9, or that Minnesota game late in the Andy Reid era where the game was snowed out on Sunday and Monday, and then they ended up having to play on Tuesday, and that was the Joe Webb game. So I made the joke that Joe Webb is the lead detective in Dragnet, not an NFL QB. That's right up your alley, right?
That is correct. I would get that. I assume they did not get that.
No, I didn't present it to them.
You didn't present it
know
to
your
them.
audience, right? Which is why I also will say that the Jets are going to start Luke Falk, and so if one of those jokes is funny, why not go to two? And I said, I know more about Peter Falk, the actor who played Columbo. Just one more thing, John McMullen, and he's dead.
Peter Falk played Columbo. I know what he said, and you're putting me on the spot. It's too early. What did he say?
Just one more thing.
No, I thought.
Just one more question.
Columbo catchphrase.
Just one more question, or just one more thing?
Just one more. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't going to get that.
I thought
didn't he do something? Wasn't there something intrinsic to his character? I know what you're saying now that he said there's one more thing. There's the hat. But I thought there was something else.
It was screened in more than 26 foreign countries. Well, you had the trench coat, and the rumpled, all that. But just one more thing often preceded him cornering the murder or the criminal with an inescapable line of questioning.
All right. I thought there was something else. I'll take the loss on that one. I'll take the L, much like the New York Jets will take it on Sunday.
Thank you.
I'm going to predict that. I'm going to be very comfortable predicting that.
Thank you for the segue, because the headline that you can read on John's article on 97.3 ESPN, no Darnold, no chance. I boiled that down. It actually says no Darnold means no chance for Jets, but I just like no Darnold, no chance. That could have been perfect too.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think they have much of a chance if Sam played, but at least, and I kind of, any NFL team, and I mentioned this on the Sports Bash yesterday, is going to be in trouble if they're down to their third quarterback. So people don't realize it's not only Sam Darnold who's been dealing with mono, but his backup was Trevor Siemian, and he got hurt when he was forced to come in and is out for the season. So Peter Falk, Luke Falk, Tony Falk, Kenny Falk, they are the third-string quarterback for the Jets. And as I said, you look across any city in the NFL, if you're down to number 3, you got issues. The Eagles are probably better off than most in that type of situation, because that would be Nate Sudfeld for them. But even for the Eagles, you want Nate Sudfeld out there, you might be able to beat Luke Falk, but not many other teams. So it's an issue, no question about it. And the Jets went about it strangely as well, because everybody kind of knew Sam Darnold was not going to be able to come back, even if he was cleared by doctors. There's a conditioning aspect for mononucleosis, and anybody who's had it takes a lot out of you. So he's probably going to need a little bit of time to get back to himself physically. And so everybody I talked to with New York, up in New York this week, and North Jersey had said, nah, he's not going to play.
Right.
But for some reason, Adam Gase gave him the first team reps on Wednesday and Thursday when you should be trying to get your third-string quarterback as many reps as possible. So not only did they have the issue, they handled it very strangely. It's a bad situation right now for the Jets.
Would that be the same Adam Gase that everybody was clamoring to end up in Philadelphia because he's a genius?
Oh,
he's a
you remember,
wonderkind?
Pete.
Is that the same guy?
I think you're the first person I talked to that remembered. It's funny how people conveniently put something embarrassing in a box and put it off to the side.
Sure.
And pretend it never existed. Yeah, this city badly wanted Adam Gase to be the head coach back in 2016 when he was and bigger than that, forget about the fans, because let's be honest, I mean, they don't have the information available to them as far as interviews and what goes on. It's the team's first choice, and they presented it that way, and they leaked it that way, and that was the guy they wanted. And I'll even go one further. He would have been the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles if he didn't push for personnel power.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember at the time, the Eagles were coming off Chip Kelly, and that was a deal breaker. That was off the table. They were not giving that to any coach. And luckily for the Eagles, he found that in Miami along with no state taxes. And he went down there to ruin the Dolphins for a couple of years.
Right.
The second part of that, the beautiful part of that, Pete, is Ben McAdoo was the second choice.
That's right. This is wonderful. Take us through the chronology. So Gase was choice one. Ben McAdoo, that great game that Levitard plays, Ben McAdoo looks like, that used to always crack up Kirchigan and all those guys on the show. I mean, where's Ben McAdoo right now?
Ben is sitting at home collecting checks from the New York Giants, and he'll be a coach in this league again if he wants to. A coordinator, certainly not a head coach. He's going to have to work his way back up to that type of position. But the legend of that story is there was a gift basket ready to go at the NovaCare complex for Ben McAdoo. He was on his way down the Jersey Turnpike and turned around at the Molly Pitcher service area when the Giants upped their offer to keep him. That's how close that was. Now, I don't know if it was Molly Pitcher. I like to throw that. That's my favorite service area.
Very good. That's
fine. He was coming down to take the job, turned around when the Giants closed the deal, and then the Eagles shifted gears. Tom Coughlin.
I was going to say there's another name in there, an older guy.
I do not think Tom Coughlin was the third choice. I do think, but it was clearly Adam Gase one, and then after they weren't able to get him, Ben McAdoo, who was going to be offered the job flat out, and then. It's better to be lucky than good.
That's right.
A lot of times, Pete.
The guy nobody wanted, Doug Peterson, ends up leading them to a Super Bowl, obviously. And then I did think of another Adam Gase layer of the onion there, peeling back a layer too. If Adam Gase doesn't piss off Jay Ajayi, right, or rub Jay Ajayi the wrong way, is Howie able to pluck Ajayi and take him, into the promised land?
No, I mean, it kind of makes you wonder from the Jets' perspective. Look, there were a lot of teams, and while you can pick on the Eagles and play revisionist history, the hottest candidate that year was Adam Gase. Basically, everybody wanted him. Now, remember, he had not been a head coach, and so you kind of feel your way and you think, and Peyton Manning had wonderful things to say about him. But once he got to Miami, it became clear that, look, this job was too big for him, whether it was age, experience, I often talk about the biggest strength of Doug Peterson is managing personalities. That's his biggest weakness. He's just terrible at it. And Jay Ajayi is a perfect example. Threw him under the bus on his way out of Miami, and he comes here and he fits in just fine. And you've seen it even with the Jets. I just mentioned how he's handled this situation and his body language and how he goes about things. It's not things you can do as a head coach in this league. Now, so it's shame on the Dolphins, maybe, but again, a lot of teams wanted Adam Gase. It's really, really, after what went on in Miami, the fact that the Jets hired him in the same division, that's dereliction of duty, Pete.
I like that phrase, dereliction of duty. God, I like your vocabulary, John. I always compliment you on that, as your ability to pluck a word out that is the perfect word for the setting and the meaning of what you're trying to go for. So you're talking, if we're talking Eagles in this game, right? And, there's nothing that concerns you about the Jets, the Eagles. However, on the Eagles, the injury bug, at least in the secondary, that's been the theme and the questioning all week. And you write on our website, they're so light at corner, Ryan Lewis gets elevated from the practice squad. They need as many bodies as they can.
Yeah, they do, and a lot of it has to do with Sidney Jones and the fact that he's questionable with a hamstring injury. Obviously tapped out in Green Bay after about 10 plays, and he's at this point of his career got to be realistic. And even if you throw the torn Achilles out the window, the fact that since he's been able to get back, there's these constant soft tissue injuries, and so I don't know if you can feel comfortable going into any NFL game with just three healthy corners, and that's where the Eagles would be: Rasul Douglas, Craig James, Orlando Scandrick. And, oh, by the way, two of those hadn't been here. Orlando's just back. Craig's been ping-ponging between the practice squad. So hopefully Sidney can go and hold up and play the entire game, and things will be better. But I will say, this is the week, if you have cornerback issues, to have them, because this is the 32nd ranked pass offense in the NFL, and with a third-string quarterback. So you can probably cobble your way through this game because the opposition isn't capable of taking advantage. But Eagles got to get some of these corners healthy and back on the field, especially for this upcoming road trip.
And I know how much you like Jim Schwartz and like listening to him talk and are entertained by his press conferences. What was his take this week on the corner situation? Because I'm sure he had to say something or with his eyes, maybe not even with his mouth, that made you chuckle or made you think, like, there's good old Jim Schwartz again.
Well, Jim's he went I think he's a little bit frustrated because you got to throw things against the wall to get through games at this stage. And the worst thing that can happen to any NFL coach, we always talk about injuries are a part of the NFL, but injuries at the same position, that's what they hate. And that kind of happened to the Eagles last year. It's happening to them again this year, specifically at corner and defensive tackle. So when you lose multiple bodies at one position, and let's be honest, at corner, people forget Jalen Mills because he's on the PUP list, and even Cre'Von LeBlanc because he's on the injured reserve. But then you had Darby in the mix, and Avonte Maddox, and Sidney Jones. Well, that's 5 of your top 6 corners not available if Sidney can't go, and Sidney wasn't able to go after about 10 plays in Green Bay. So that's kind of, you throw your hands up, and I think Jim broke out. It is what it is. You just got to try to get through the games as best you can with players who, again, if Orlando Scandrick wasn't on this team in Green Bay, Craig James is 3 NFL snaps under his belt. And now Ryan Lewis wasn't even on the practice squad, and is now likely going to be activated for an NFL game with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's where he is at the cornerback position. So he doesn't want to be in that position. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no doubt. John McMullen with us, our 97.3 ESPN Eagles insider. Eagles Jets tomorrow. You can hear that one right here on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, you mentioned defensive tackle. Tim Jernigan already ruled out with that foot. How concerned, if you mentioned it, that must be another area of concern for you and Jim Schwartz, right, on where they stand at defensive tackle right now.
Well, I don't think it's as big as a concern, but probably because they're so concerned with cornerback, they don't have time. And that goes back to Malik Jackson as well. I mean, that was the original plan, and I think it was a good one. And they get one game out of Malik Jackson before he's hurt. And then Tim Jernigan, his backup is hurt, so it's the same type of thing. You have multiple injuries at the same position. All of a sudden, Hassan Ridgeway, who's supposed to be the fourth defensive tackle, is now a starter in essence. And Akeem Spence, who wasn't on the team at the beginning of the season, is now a significant part of that rotation. The good news is, I guess, if you want to be optimistic, is Eagles have been very good stopping the run. Now, you could say that's because it's so easy to pass on them. Nobody cares, as they're 32nd in the NFL in pass defense. Or you can say those guys are holding up pretty well. I think it's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B.
John McMullen with us on almost said the Sports Bash. I don't even know the name of my own show. In full disclosure, John, it's not 9:30 yet.
It's the name of your show is your name,
right?
So that's a double whammy.
Yeah, let's make sure that we record that and play that for Mays and Aton and Gil, and that everybody can have that. Yes, it is the Pete Thompson Show here on 97.3 ESPN. Breakfast with the PT. All right, so there's no path that you see Eagles failure tomorrow. There's no way, no chance for the Jets, right? Fine, I get that. But is there any area of concern on the offensive side of the football for the Eagles not being able to perform, or that gives you pause?
I think the biggest thing that would give me pause is human nature and the fact that the Eagles see what we all see. And maybe despite your best intentions, it's hard not to look forward and see 3 consecutive road games and tougher opponents up ahead. The thought process in the NFL is obviously compartmentalize each week, focus on the opponent that week. But that's easy to say, harder to do when you think, well, this team can't hurt us. So I do think you might see a little bit of a repeat of week 1 against Washington, and you might see some ugliness early in the game before a late wake-up call, but then I think talent will just take over, and the Eagles will win the game.
Yeah, the old Andy Reid line, our toughest opponent is our next opponent, because it's Eagles, Jets tomorrow. Then things get a little tougher as it's at the Vikings, at the Cowboys, and at the Bills for weeks 6, 7, and 8. John McMullen with us here on the Pete Thompson Show on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you check out John's work on our website, 973 ESPN. Follow him at JF McMullen on Twitter.